Save COD charges by sending check or money order or use your credit card.
This is CNN.
Some anxious moments in Tokyo as President Bush collapses at dinner, but then gets up and walks away on his own. We'll have that story and more for this Wednesday, January 8th.
This is Day Watch with Bob Cain and Donna Kelly. News for the conscientious consumer.
Hello, Donna will be along a little later, hosting Cryer and Company. President Bush is, we are told, resting comfortably in his guest quarters in Tokyo at this hour after collapsing from the flu at a dinner there. It is now 1 a.m. in Tokyo, about 4.5 hours after the president slumped over at a banquet table and spent a few harrowing moments on the floor nearby. The White House says Mr. Bush is fine, except for a touch of stomach flu. The president's fainting spell took place at a dinner hosted by Japanese Prime Minister Kiichi Miyazawa. Japanese cameras were there. No U.S. cameras had been allowed in to record a grim-faced president slumped on the floor as First Lady Barbara Bush looked on. The president reportedly vomited, but later got up and walked away. The traveling White House now has said goodnight to reporters after briefing them on the president's condition.
President Bush is in his suite at the Akasaka Palace and is feeling fine, following a bout with the flu. The president's personal physician, Dr. Burton Lee, says the president is in good shape and probably will feel okay tomorrow. Before tonight's state dinner at Prime Minister Miyazawa's official residence, President Bush told his physician that he felt somewhat ill. Dr. Lee examined the president and determined that he had a touch of the flu, but the president wanted to attend the state dinner. During the dinner tonight, at approximately 8:20 p.m., the president slumped over in his chair, was feeling weak, and was helped to the floor by Secret Service agents. The president recovered in a few minutes and remarked to his agents, "I just wanted to get a little attention." Dr. Lee, who was also attending the dinner, was at the president's side immediately and determined there was no need for special assistance as the president left the dinner to return to his suite.
There had been some early reports that Mr. Bush was taken by ambulance to a hospital. Those reports turned out to be false. He never got into an ambulance and did not go to a hospital. Cameras capture the president leaving the dinner in his personal limousine. For the latest now, we go live to Tokyo and CNN correspondent Taylor Henry. Taylor.
Bob, I'm standing outside in front of the Akasaka Guest Palace where President Bush and Mrs. Bush are inside. The president reported resting and doing very well. All is quiet here now except for the dwindling crowd of reporters, American and Japanese, standing outside the palace watching for anything unusual. Thus far, there has been nothing unusual other than the arrival of Mrs. Bush about 45 minutes after her stricken husband arrived here about 4.5 hours ago. Following that, 2 other cars showed up, one believed carrying a senior Japanese government official. Those cars left shortly thereafter. We're told that the president is resting now, that he had been taking the drug Halcyon and that he has been being treated now with another drug. Should the need arise, should the president need to go to the hospital during the night, Keio University Hospital is just a few blocks from here and is ready to accept the president should the president need medical attention later on tonight. It was just a few blocks from here at the Prime Minister's official residence that the president collapsed. He was attending a dinner hosted by Prime Minister Kiichi Miyazawa. The president, during the toast, had water and not champagne, as is the custom. He was stricken and then rushed by car here to the Akasaka Guest Palace and has been here ever since. Taylor Henry, CNN, reporting live from Tokyo.
First Lady Barbara Bush stayed at the dinner and went so far as to joke about her husband's illness. Earlier today, the president and the U.S. ambassador to Tokyo had played a tennis match against the Emperor of Japan and the Crown Prince. Later, after the president fell ill and left the dinner, Mrs. Bush quipped about a possible connection between the collapse and the tennis match.
I can't explain what happened to George because it never happened before, but I'm beginning to think it's the ambassador's fault. He and George played the Emperor and the Crown Prince in tennis today, and they were badly beaten. And we Bushes aren't used to that, so he felt much worse than I thought.
The President and Mrs. Bush are scheduled to be back at the White House by Friday morning of this week. Stock markets around the world reacted, and quickly, to news that the President had fallen ill. To find out what is happening now on Wall Street, we go to Bill Hartley at the New York Stock Exchange. Morning, Bill.
Good morning, Bob. The traders and investors had quite a few hours here to digest this news before the market opened. The market did open sharply lower, dropping almost 23 points. But generally, analysts believe that was just taking profits, a sell-off. It had very little, if anything, to do with the president's illness. In fact, the market has turned totally around. It is on the upside. It is back into record territory, a gain of something over 8 points right now. And that does put, as I said, well into record territory. The broader market is also moving ahead, so it looks like we could be headed for yet one more record day. That would be 9 out of the past 10. Bob?
Thank you, Bill. And CNN's Day Watch continues after this.
Day Watch is brought to you by Sears Brand Central, the brands you want at the store you trust.
Hurry into Sears Brand Central for America's biggest appliance and electronics sale. Virtually all your favorite brands are on sale right now with great low credit options and Sears nationwide service. No wonder more people buy more top-name brands from the store they trust. You can count on America's largest usable capacity Kenmore washer and matching dryer, both at their lowest price ever, only at Sears Brand Central.
Have you tried Folgers coffee singles?
One coffee
In its own filter.
Singular sensation, every single cup you brew.
It's like brewing a whole pot. One cup at a time.
Singular sensation, fresh brewed morning for you.
There's ground roast in here.
In its own filter.
Folgers, singular sensation, just for one.
Folgers coffee singles, one sensational way to wake up.
I'll never go back to denture pastes or powders again.
Here's why. C-Bond denture adhesive. No other adhesive works like C-Bond, and it holds dentures so tight, so long. C-Bond combines two powerful adhesives into a soft micro-thin seal that bonds your dentures to your gums, can hold them comfortably all day long.
I'll never go back to pastes or powders.
There's no messy cleanup. C-Bond is so easy to remove. Nothing holds dentures like C-Bond.
You'll never go back to pastes or powders again.
Chapstick. From the freezing wind to the scorching sun, Chapstick Lip Balm is serious medicine made to help chapped lips heal fast and healthy lips stay healthy. Whatever the weather, don't take chances. Take Chapstick.
Good morning.
Are you tired of morning news shows that give you everything but the news?
Big events happening overseas, but first...
Is your pet psychic? We'll find out.
Wake up to headline news for the latest news, business, and sports around the clock.
There was, to answer a question that began occurring to people this morning early, no transfer of power to Vice President Dan Quayle after President Bush collapsed with intestinal flu today in Tokyo. Quayle headed to the White House as soon as he was notified of the president's illness. The vice president still plans to head to New Hampshire, as has been planned, for a two-day campaign trip. For more on the story, we go to the White House now and CNN correspondent Carl Rochelle. Hi, Carl.
Good morning, Bob. Quite so. Things normal here. In fact, I'm told that the vice president may have even gotten here a few minutes later than he normally would. That's how normal they consider things here. But the vice president has gone now. He is on his way to Andrews Air Force Base, where he will leave by aircraft, Air Force 2, as it were, for New Hampshire, where he plans a two-day campaign tour. That is as normal, no change in the plans there. We did see the vice president momentarily this morning when he left his office in the old executive office building over to his smaller office in the White House. He was asked questions by reporters.
How's the president?
If you look very carefully, you will notice that as the vice president disappeared behind the bushes, he gave a thumbs up. That's really the only response. He was asked really three questions. Was he concerned about the president's condition? He did not answer that. He was asked, how is the president's condition? He gave the thumbs up, and he was asked if he had talked to the president. He did not respond to that. That's the only chance we have had to throw questions at the vice president this morning. He got the word at about 6:30 from Chief of Staff Samuel Skinner. Samuel Skinner did come rushing down to the White House, or came down to the White House. I hesitate to use the term rushing, because they are very much trying to put a face on everything that all is normal here. I talked to Skinner's office a bit ago. They said, we consider things to be normal here at the White House. But he did come down. He is the person who made the call to Vice President Quayle at the Vice President's residence here in Washington to let him know that the president was ill. As Bob mentioned, there was no transfer of power, and there was no consideration, as far as I know, ever given to any sort of transfer of power. They are making a very big point here that things are normal. The Vice President should be leaving from Andrews Air Force Base momentarily for New Hampshire. Carl Rochelle, CNN, reporting live from the White House.
Thank you, Carl. The president got sick as he was putting the finishing touches on a very long day of meetings and trade negotiations in Tokyo. He'd held meetings earlier with Prime Minister Kiichi Miyazawa. Mr. Bush is trying to persuade Japan to change its trade policies to lower Japan's $41 billion trade surplus with the United States. White House spokesman Marlin Fitzwater says the two countries have not agreed on targets for Japanese imports of U.S. cars and parts. Fitzwater calls the talks severe. That is a very strong word in diplomatic parlance. 3/4 of the trade deficit is in autos and auto-related products. In an interview with CNN senior White House correspondent Charles Bierbauer, Bierbauer asked the president how friction between the two nations can be avoided despite the trade imbalance.
There is a certain ugliness in Japan bashing, and I tried to set the proper tone on that back at Pearl Harbor on December 7th. And incidentally, the Japanese were very generous in their assessment of setting a tone where we compete on a business basis, not with some subterranean prejudice in the mode. So the way you lay it to rest, though, is to be successful in your quest for more access to the Japanese market, and that in turn inevitably means more American jobs. So I think that's the way to do it, rather than kind of grumbling about it and talking about protection legislation.
Because of his illness, the president will not attend a breakfast meeting, which he had planned to go to between U.S. and Japanese business leaders. When Day Watch continues, we will look at the growing number of Americans declaring bankruptcy and talk with an expert about who should and who shouldn't.
This is ordinary bulk fiber. It's full of grit. This is new Sunrise Smooth Metamucil. The grit is gone because it's triple ground for smoothness. This is ordinary fiber. The grit is definitely not gone. This is new Sunrise Smooth Metamucil, the best mixing, smoothest tasting natural fiber you can buy. The grit is gone. New Sunrise Smooth Metamucil. For regularity, nothing works better, and the grit is gone.
They go by names like Chapel Lane and Maple Street, California Highway 1, and the Great White Way. The roads we travel start out in small towns like Pottersville, and they can take you as far as bigger towns, like Pumpkin Corners. They go by places where people still stop and say hello to old friends, and make new ones. There are over 4 million miles of roads in Alamo territory, all across America. And every day, with every car nationwide, only Alamo gives you all those miles for free, including the ones that go from sea level to the sky. The ones that take us through a country we call America, to the place we call home.
With the termination of an oppressive government comes the opportunity for the voicing of lifestyles long underground. We'll talk about homosexuality in Russia today on Sonia Live, 1 p.m. Eastern, only on CNN.
Well, at last report, President Bush was described as resting at his quarters at the Akasaka Palace in Tokyo after having collapsed earlier at dinner. The traveling White House says the president's condition is fine. He just has the flu. Mr. Bush slumped over and was helped to the floor by Secret Service agents. The White House says